I recently did a video on Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain, added in Terry Real with his verbiage and explanations, and Jules, one of my podcast partners. Rebecca's my other podcast partner, and Robin Goebel. And like I said, this is Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. And in that video, I mentioned a salt story. I alluded to salt. And then I said I would do another video on that. So that was kind of like meant to be it wasn't actually meant to be a spoiler alert. I'm not that good at marketing. It was a spoiler alert, tidbit, a teaser. So here's the salt story, true story. When I was 6, my mom had high blood pressure and took our family off salt, stopped cooking with salt. And I don't even think she kept salt in the house. So it's not like there was a salt shaker on the table and we could add in our own salt. I literally was off salt at 6 years old and did not have salt in my house until I moved in with my husband 18 years ago. So not only do I not cook with salt, or did I not cook with salt, and not have salt in the house, I also have my entire life had to buy low salt stuff. Like I use low salt soy sauce. I use low salt. I went through a phase where I was drinking a lot of V8. I do love that drink, V8. And I would have to buy low sodium because I've been off salt since I was 6 years old. My husband is not off salt or on a low salt diet. So I would be making him scrambled eggs and he would always say, "Is there salt on these?" And the answer was always no. And that became a common refrain in our house. How could he get me to put salt on his eggs? And I mean, we tried everything for a long time. I kept salt right next to the stove. I moved the salt somewhere else. It just wasn't happening. It just never crossed my mind. Not to mention, I like my eggs bland, apparently. Because again, I've been off salt since I was 6 years old. So I don't even find stuff like that bland. That's just the way it goes for me. And I started, once I learned about not necessarily Dan's hand model of the brain, but to use Terry's verbiage, once I learned about first consciousness, once I learned about this part, scanning for safety versus danger, once I learned all that, it hit me that my brain goes into defensive mode. I feel attacked when my husband asks if I use salt when I cooked. I also learned, just verbiage for me, and I mentioned this in the last video. So, this part of your brain, your subcortical part of your brain, is scanning for safety versus danger. That's how scientists call it. And then I realized that word danger does not fit for my relationship. I'm not in a domestically violent relationship, thank goodness. The couples I see are not. So the word danger did not really relationally fit for my relationship. Threat and attack do. Those words do fit for me. I do, actually threat probably doesn't fit either, but attack. I do feel attacked by him sometimes. I do sometimes feel attacked when he asks, why didn't I cook with salt? So that's probably when I mentioned the salt story. And I like to tell my clients that story, that situation, because frequently in my sessions, that's what I talk to my clients about. Do you ever feel attacked by your partner? And I don't mean attacked like they're going to hit you, but salt attacked. And once my clients know the salt story, they chuckle and they're like, yeah, actually yes, I do feel like that. So that's the salt story. That my husband will say, why isn't there salt in this? Or did you add salt in this? And sometimes I can handle that from a connected space. Oops, no, remorse lives here, by the way. Oh, I forgot again, honey. I'm sorry, I forgot again. Let me go get you some salt. That's less frequent. My frequent responses have ranged from, oh my gosh, no, and can't you just get over it, to add your own salt, to, I had a client, this is a true story. I had a client who was a chef, and he specifically told me that chefs aren't supposed to cook with salt so that the person can add salt to their own liking. I've gone through all those, and can you tell that my response is from here as well? And I did tell that story to a couple once about a year or two ago, and the husband said to me, well, is he trying to attack you? And I said, I honestly don't know. That is a very good question. I know that I'm taking it that way. Whether or not he means it is kind of irrelevant. I'm taking it that way and I'm lashing back. True story. My clients leave my sessions and they walk out the door and or they log off with Zoom, right? And I forget to go downstairs and ask my husband if he's attacking me. So it's not like later that day I went to my husband and said, hey, when you ask if I didn't cook with salt, are you trying to attack me? Didn't even cross my mind. I think it was a couple weeks later that we were talking about something else. I still remember. And I looked at him, I said, hey, one of the husbands I work with made this comment. Like I told him about, our whole salt thing. And he said, well, is he trying to attack you? And I didn't know. Are you trying to attack me? And my husband laughed and he said, sometimes. So I thought that was really funny too. Sometimes he is absolutely trying to attack me. He and I are both human. And sometimes he's honestly not. So sometimes he is likely here and just curious. Like, is it his taste buds? He's not tasting salt. Could there be salt in this? Sometimes he's really just curious, and sometimes he's here too, and he's attacking me. And then sometimes, even when he's attacking me, I can still stay here and stay connected with him, and sometimes I can't. So what I think I did mention also in that video was my son with homework. So my son does feel attacked. I don't know why, but my son feels attacked, seems to act like he feels attacked, maybe I should say it that way, when we ask if he had homework. And I was talking to my husband one night and I said, Michael goes into a defensive mode. He feels attacked when we ask him about his homework. First he says, my husband was like, really attacked? And I said, well, like salt attacked. He goes, oh, okay. I mean, he does think it's ridiculous when I use those kind of metaphors. He also gets it. So when I say like salt attacked, he's annoyed that I use this salt story so frequently. And yet it paints a good picture and he knows what I mean by it. And like I said, that's what happens with my clients. The salt story paints a good picture and people know what I mean by it. And so I've even reached the point in my sessions now where I will ask my clients, like, have I told you about the salt? And some say, oh yeah, and that's funny. And some say, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I tell them in 2 seconds. I didn't grow up with salt. And now I feel attacked when my husband asks why I didn't cook with salt. So there's my salt story. So if you keep in mind what I did last video, Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. This is your brain stem. Keeps your heart beating, your lungs breathing. This is your subcortical part of your brain. This is when your brain is unintegrated, which means networks are just firing off independently to keep you safe. Terry Real calls this your first consciousness. He also calls this your adaptive child. Robin is who, this is on the last video, Robin's information was she told me more about what this part of your brain is scanning. I'm also going to say here that Robin calls this part of your brain either your watchdog or your possum. So if anyone here is familiar with Robin Goebel, this would be your watchdog or your possum. And then here is your neocortex. And Terry calls this your second consciousness. He used to call this your functional adult. He now calls it your wise adult. I call this your connected brain. This is also your integrated brain. Here is unintegrated, here is integrated. It means all the networks available are working together to the best of their ability. This is where connection is possible. So this is also your protective brain. This is your connective brain. So that's just a review quickly of the last video. And like I said, the salt story is I feel attacked when my husband asks if I cooked with salt or why didn't I cook with salt. Just depends on how he phrases the question that day. But that is the salt story, that when this part of your brain is scanning, am I okay, am I not okay, am I safe, am I in danger, am I under threat, am I under attack, salt can give you a good lens for if it's happening in your marriage. It kind of, I don't want to say minimizes it, but it can give an example of how sometimes our reactions, we may not really be in danger. I think that's why I like the salt story, because I'm not really in danger, and I'm actually, whether or not he's meaning to, I'm really not under attack because my husband asks about salt. And my subconscious brain thinks I am, and then I respond from there. So there's a salt story that I was alluding to. And if you like this video, I think it's so funny how this term is so redundant, but if you like this video, please like this video so that more people can see it. It tells the algorithm to show it to more people, and subscribe to my videos so that you know when there's a new one online. Till next time.